Okay, so welcome everyone. I want to just thank everyone for coming. I want to thank Dan Manson and Jake Mivik and John Sands, of course, for leading this initiative and coordinating everything. We're going to be doing this monthly. And please check our Community of Practice site. I shared it in the chat area. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or the co-chairs. We have other activities going on and other initiatives going on. So please check that out. With that, Dan, go ahead.
Thank you, Uriel. It's my pleasure to introduce Franz Payer. Franz is the CEO and co-founder of Cyber Skyline. Cyber Skyline is the platform that the National Cyber League has used since 2015. The NCL offers engaging, entertaining, measurable, and scalable methods of validating skill sets to enlist a new generation of cybersecurity professionals. And with that, I'll turn it over to Franz.
All right, thank you, Dan. Give me 1 second as I get my slide share working right now. All right, can I just get a brief confirmation that you can see my screen?
We can see it.
All right, thank you, everyone. So as Dan mentioned, I'm one of the co-founders of Cyber Skyline. Cyber Skyline is it's a browser-based. Basically, it's a CTF platform. It's a cool tool for students to be able to go in and do different challenges. And within the National Cyber League, this is kind of our experience to really help students develop their skills alongside what they're doing in the classroom and really prepare for a career in the cybersecurity industry. I'm typically involved in a lot of the operations for the National Cyber League. On this call as well, we also have David Zaitchik, who's the NCL commissioner, and we've got Emily Calandranis, who's our community engagement manager. And I love that we have everyone on the call. If you got any questions, I'm happy to help answer them, or maybe one of them can pop in the chat and help answer them as we go through today's presentation. But I really appreciate everyone joining today, and I'm really excited to share the amazing things that we're doing at the National Cyber League. So I'll start off first. Dan gave a little bit of a teaser, but covering what is the actual National Cyber League. At the core, we have a cybersecurity competition that runs twice a year, and it is targeted at both high school and college students. And in terms of like the experience that was required, it's very minimal. We actually don't require that you have any cybersecurity experience. We do kind of recommend that students have some sort of computer science knowledge, whether that is, they're just interested in computer science by themselves, they've taken a single cybersecurity or computer science class. That should just give them a little bit of a background, a little bit of a foundation for them to start building upon. This experience is not a replacement for an actual class, and so it's very helpful for students to have a little bit of that background, or potentially even have to be taking a class or having an instructor that can help them as they go through this experience. Now, when they participate in the National Cyber League, what they're going to expect is they're going to be given a lot of real world cybersecurity challenges. One of the big things that we're trying to do is help students apply what they're learning in the classroom to a real world environment. And so what this might entail is they might be required to look at some forensics data. Maybe it's some log files of a server that's been compromised, and they're being asked, who's the hacker? How do they break in? What information did they steal? IP addresses of the servers. What versions of the software are being used? These types of questions where they might not get a lot of, they might learn a lot of these concepts in the classroom, but not necessarily a lot of opportunity to try it out in a real world applied environment. And it's really going to give them that experience so that they are going to be prepared for what they're going to have to do as a professional, right? Once they join the industry, this is a type of task that they might be expected to perform if they were working in some sort of incident response role. Now, there's a wide range of cybersecurity skills covered within the National Cyber League. Some other examples of the challenges could be actually some more offensive skills, running an audit on a website, finding some vulnerabilities on the website, maybe finding a way to bypass the login, being able to recover from a ransomware attack. Maybe you're looking at the malware and trying to figure out if there's some sort of vulnerability in the malware itself that will let you decrypt your files. So these types of real world tasks are the things that students will be expecting to experience during the competition. Now, what you're seeing on these two screenshots on the left side, this is a screenshot of the more of a little hands-on demo, which I'll show a little later today. But students are going to be given some sort of prompt that gives them a scenario of what they're going to be doing, and they're going to be given some sort of artifacts, some sort of tools maybe, which they're going to use to solve a series of questions that are related around a central theme. Now, the cool part about the National Cyber League is not only do they just get the experience of going through these challenges, but we provide a lot of cool analytics and data, which is really helpful for students as they're plotting their path as a student, and then as they start going to the career. A lot of these analytics provide them the recognition to help them obtain an internship or a job. And so on the right side, you can see some of those analytics. We have like the traditional, here's the leaderboard for the top 10 players and all sorts of things like that you would expect in other competitions. But beyond that, we've got a lot of data that allows students to kind of look at relative strengths and weaknesses, being able to see like what specific skill sets are they wanting to focus on, and being able to see how they're comparing to their peers across the board. And so that's all within the National Cyber League experience. Now, I will say that the NCL is a lot more than just a competition. We say that we're a community, and it's really about having all these resources and tools to help prepare students throughout their collegiate experience. And so a lot of players in NCL will come in as a freshman or as a sophomore, and they'll go through multiple semesters, continue to be involved in NCL and continue building those skills. And they basically get these reports that will kind of show their growth over time. And then in between, other than just the games, there's a community Slack channel where they can help each other learn, provide different resources and tools to help build these skills. We also hold webinars with the players committee where we just have hangout sessions. Sometimes we do webinars where we're teaching new topics to help the students learn. And we've recently, now that COVID's kind of wrapping down, we've started holding meetups at conferences. And so it's more than just a competition. It's really a community where students will come to learn and prepare for a career. And so with that in mind, the big reasons why people get involved in NCL for students, I kind of mentioned some of these already. They can use the competition as a way to identify those strengths and weaknesses, find ways they can improve. They get to apply what they learned in the classroom to be prepared for an interview. And we also provide the NCL scouting report, which I'll show a little bit later, which is a PDF document, which will highlight all of the skill sets of the student so that they can actually use that as a way to stand out from other applicants for those internships or those jobs. We also have what we call the Cyber Power Rankings, which is a listing of the top schools that participate in the National Cyber League. And so students have the ability to represent their school in those national power rankings. And the last reason for students, it's just fun. We actually find ourselves having to remind the students like, hey, you need to take a break. Make sure you get some food, make sure you get some sleep. Sometimes you just get so immersed in it, they just have that adrenaline rush when they solve a challenge, that it's just such an engaging thing for the students. They really get immersed in the whole experience. Now on the school side, if you're an educator, there's a lot of reasons to be involved in National Cyber League. One is to supplement that in-class learning. So it's really tricky to keep up to date with all of the things that are happening in the industry. You have your curriculum, you can't change it all the time. So the National Cyber League is a great way to supplement that curriculum. You can give your students these hands-on activities, these hands-on exercises, so that they can prepare for a career in the industry without having to change everything that you're doing within your class every single semester. So it's a pretty cool supplement to that classroom experience. We're also here sitting with the CAE community. So one of the things that we help schools with is continuing to help them meet those CAE requirements. One of those requirements is participation in cyber competitions. And so that's a way that you can meet that. And we actually give a dashboard for faculty members to be able to see how their students are performing to help them with the reporting for their CAE requirements. I mentioned as well the Cyber Power Rankings. And at the end of the day, these last two items, you're really trying to help your students prepare for that career. One of the big things that we hear is that at the entry level, it's difficult for students to differentiate from all the other applicants. If they don't have job experience, how do they actually get that employer to hire them? One of the big things that we've seen is that when students talk about their NCL experience, that really makes them shine during the interview process, because inevitably they're going to get the question, tell me about a time you had to solve a difficult challenge. Have you done any work related to what we're doing as a company? If they haven't gone through some sort of experience like the National Cyber League, they're not going to have a very strong answer to that question. But we see students all the time saying, oh yes, I had to I had to look at some log files. I had to identify a hacker. I didn't know how to do this. I had to go on Google. I had to search these different tools, these different resources. I looked at some specifications, and that's my process, and that's how I was able to solve it. And so that really helps students land that next step after they graduate. Now, within the NCL season, we have 4 main components. We have the gym, the practice game, the individual game, and the team game. So basically, the gym is a practice environment where students will be able to go in for quite some time. It's about 3 months. And there's some past challenges in the gym that have written guides. We also have a couple of video guides. We're making even more video guides to help them prepare for the competition. We also have a practice game, which is a week long, where they get to solve different challenges without the aid of the guides. So it's kind of low pressure way for them to experience trying to solve the problems without the support of the guides. After the practice game, we have an individual game where students compete by themselves. They solve as many challenges as they can. They can work on whatever is interesting to them, so they don't have to go down a specific path. But they have to do it as an individual because we provide that reporting that will help them get the job, and so we have to keep it fair. Now, we do know that students love working together, and there's a lot to gain from working together as a team. So we have a team game, which comes 2 weeks after the individual game. That also happens over a weekend, and students will be able to participate in teams of up to 7. So they get to scratch that itch of being able to talk to their friends and work together. And this is where we see most of the players having a lot of their fun. Oftentimes they'll hang out in someone's dorm room, or maybe they'll go get some pizza or hang out at a Starbucks. Students have a lot of fun participating in the team game. And then within the competition, we have these 9 different topics, which will help them be able to figure out, what type of career am I looking for when I graduate? One of the things that we see as well with students is that they sometimes don't know what job they want. There's a lot of different cybersecurity jobs. And so NCL kind of gives a very large breadth of these different skills. And so we've got things like open source intelligence, cryptography, password cracking, log analysis, scanning, enumeration exploitation, network traffic analysis, forensics, and web application security. And so it runs the gamut, these defensive skills, these offensive skills, those forensic skills, all in here. And the really cool thing that I'll go into in a second with the scouting report is that if you're looking at a student who doesn't quite know what they want to do as a career yet, the scouting report is another cool way for them to get a little bit of guidance there. And so this is a screenshot of the scouting report. At the end of the game, what we're doing is we're taking all of the stats that the students had in the individual and the team game, and we're giving them these PDF documents. And there's samples of this on the National Cyber League website. But what you can see here is we have these different categories within the games. There's a description of what is involved in that category. You can see the students' ranking, their score, their percentile, all these different stats. On the right side, you can actually see these are the nice work roles that are relevant to this specific topic. And so if you have a student who they're coming in as a freshman or a sophomore, they don't quite know what specific job they want, when they go through the National Cyber League, they'll try out all the different topics, they'll get the report, and they can see, oh, I'm really good in this skill, or I really enjoyed this skill. What types of careers should I consider? And so this is a quick and easy way for them to build that path. And when they want to go and show this to an employer, they can say, here's my ranking, I'm top 10%, top 20% in the nation. Here are the different tasks I was able to perform. So you can see the different challenges listed below here. And in this last one, you see intrusion detection. there's a description of exactly what the student did. Analyze an IDS log to identify indicators of compromise and attack signatures. So when they go to an employer, maybe they're talking to a recruiter, they're talking to a hiring manager, they want to work in a SOC, they say, hey, here's my scouting report, I did log analysis, I can show you that I was actually able to do this task. I was able to find an indicator of compromise from a log file. And then if I get an interview, I can talk about that in my interview. So the really cool thing here that you get within the National Cyber League is the experience that the students get with practicing that then correlates into the recognition that they get, for their own benefit, as well as to be able to show to employers. And there's versions of these analytics directly in the site itself, and we have digital badges as well. They have the ability to share the scouting report on their LinkedIn profile, to really be able to share with the world, really help them get that first internship or a job. And I'll go over a little bit kind of like who does NCL, where everyone comes from. So we see about 14,000 players every single year. We run NCL twice a year, so it's about 7,000 in the spring, 7,000 in the fall. And you can see the breakdown of where everyone's from. So about 15% are high school students, 30% are 2-year schools, and 55% are 4-year institutions. We also have this information directly on the website. You can actually see a list of all the schools that do NCL, a link to the power rankings. We also have this interactive heat map. If you're familiar with CyberSeek, we modeled our map based on CyberSeek. So you can actually go in and click on the different areas and see what schools are participating and how many students do they have in the NCL. And here's just a quick list of a lot of the different schools that do NCL. In the previous screenshot, you can see we've got a lot of concentration on the West Coast, the East Coast, as well as like Texas and Illinois. So we've got people from all over the US. And this is a cool stat that we found. When we crunched our numbers, we actually found out that 75% of all CAE schools participate in NCL. So that's quite a lot. I don't know how many people on this call are already participating in NCL, but we actually have a dedicated CAE power ranking leaderboard. So that's a cool thing as well. If you want to compete against your fellow CAE schools, we have a dedicated leaderboard for that as well in the power rankings. And you can see the growth over time. We haven't updated this for 2022 yet, but you know, we've constantly been adding a lot of new students to NCL, even during COVID, which was exciting because we're fully remote. There's no need to necessarily have an in-person meeting. A lot of players actually participate straight out of their dorm room remotely, and they'll use some sort of like Zoom or Discord to chat with each other as they play the game. So now I want to kind of dive into the NCL experience. I'll do a little bit of a demo. If you've got any questions, please ask them in the chat. I'll try to go through a couple of them as I'm getting the demo set up.
Franz, this is Dan. I have a question, but it's about the information that NCL provides. NCL maps to CompTIA, Security Plus. NCL maps to the NSA knowledge units, and now Cyber Skyline NCL maps to work roles. So you're going down the road of competencies, which is becoming very important at CAE institutions. Can you just touch on all that information?
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. Let me actually share some links in the chat. So we have a mapping to the NICE framework. So it's NCL NICE framework mapping. And we also have a mapping to the CompTIA certs. So that's the link there to the mapping to the work roles within the NICE framework, as well as the CompTIA certifications. So if you're teaching to a Security Plus certification, for example, you can use the NCL as a great way for your students to practice in preparation for the cert. we also have a partnership with CompTIA where if you happen to have students that already have a cert, participation in NCL will give them their CEUs towards their renewal for their cert. And then we also have specifically, we also have a mapping to the CAEKUs within NCL as well. And so if you're trying to create that mapping for your reporting, this is a interesting mapping for you to be able to go through. As a faculty member, you can see how your students are performing, and you can dive into the specific skill sets and then use that to inform what KUs are your students strong in or weak in, and then help that kind of guide the direction you want to move in terms of building out your courses and supporting your students. All right, so let me start sharing this demo here. And if you've got any more questions, feel free to ask in the chat. I will try to keep an eye on here and answer them as I go through. But what we're doing right now is we're going straight into the actual game experience. What we've got right now is a scenario which is designed for kind of like an entry-level cyber analyst. And you can see on the right side of the screen, and please let me know if you need me to zoom in and make this font a little bit bigger. I'm happy to do that. But we've got a scenario which is that there's some malware out there, and the player is being asked to distinguish the malware from other programs. And they're being told the malware has a string and a byte sequence, and we suggest that they use a tool called Yara to help with the malware identification. So a big part about NCL, which like I mentioned, we tried to tie it to a real world problem. So you can definitely see how this might be something that someone would have to do on the job. And we're giving them either some files to download or some tools directly in the browser to try to solve this problem. And in this case, we have a live Linux terminal environment. And you can see I was able to click in there. It boots up right away. There's no waiting. The students just go in and play around with it. And this is like a real environment. This isn't a simulated environment. This is like a real Linux environment. And they are going to be able to walk through the different questions, different challenges in this scenario. And we try to build the questions in kind of this ascending difficulty and in a way that guides the student towards the correct answer without telling them. So we've seen a lot of guides which just say, do this, do that, do this. And then the students just follow they just like copy the instructions, they just follow everything, and they didn't really learn anything because all they're doing is copying and pasting. And so what we try to do is ask questions in an intelligent way where the questions are themselves breadcrumbs. So we don't tell them what to do, but we're kind of guiding their thought process. And so in this first question, we're being asked, how many samples are provided? So this isn't even a cybersecurity question. I mentioned you don't need cybersecurity knowledge to do NCL. You just need some basic computer science knowledge. Right now, what you have is a Linux command line terminal. If you have a student that's not familiar with this, they can go online, they can Google that. There's tons of tutorials, tons of guides to tell you how to use the command line. And all we need to do right now is navigate to the samples folder. And if we do that, we can see, all right, here are all these samples. They're labeled from 0 to 99. So 0 to 99, that's 100 samples. And so I can come in here in the chat, I can type in, there are 100 samples, if I can spell this correctly. And if I hit enter, you can see it gets submitted, it gets scored right away. And so our system is actually doing some keyword searching. And so we're very flexible with the way that answers can be submitted. We've seen a lot of platforms where sometimes if you've got like the capitalization slightly different, or there's like some extra punctuation, that can like throw a wrench in things, and students don't get scored when like it's a semantic issue. Like practically the answer is correct, but they just didn't submit it in the format that the system wanted it. We know that's really frustrating to students. So we have a huge degree of flexibility in how they can submit their answers. So you can see there, I typed in the words 100. I could have also typed in the number 100. I could do 100.00. If the answer were like 1,000, I could do 1,000 with the comma, 1,000 without the comma. All those things would be treated equivalently. And we also have in our infrastructure the ability to look at common errors that are being submitted, and we'll go through those through the competition, and we'll see, are students submitting things that are being marked incorrect by the system, but are actually correct. And we'll actually go through and give retroactive credit. So students will get refunded those extra submissions and they'll be able to get credit for those submissions. So we really try to tailor this experience to be as intuitive, as flexible to the student as possible, and to kind of reduce that frustration that they might have sometimes where they're not fighting to solve the problem, they're fighting against the platform, the system. And so now you can see the next question, how many of the samples contain this string? Now, if we go back to the prompt, we can see that the malware has a string and a byte sequence. So this is just asking for the first half of the signature here. And if we go back, we can see there is a rule.yara. So there's a default rule that's provided to the students. And if we open it up, we can see that this already has the string in here. And so we don't actually have to make any modifications here. So at this point, we've evaluated, can the student familiarize themselves with the Linux command line after that? The question is, can they run Yara with the default rules without making any modifications? And again, if they don't know how to do this, they can pull up the manual for Yara. They can go online, they can search for examples of how to use Yara. These are kind of like bite-sized learning outcomes so that the student isn't given such a big task that they're kind of like blown out of the water. They don't know what to do. And so I happen to know how to use Yara. So if I run Yara with the default rules, we can run it on these samples. I can see here are all the samples that match. I happen to also know how to get a line count, so I don't have to count all of that by hand. And so I can run it, get a line count, and I can see there are 80 samples. And so I can come in here and I can do 80.0. And that gets marked as correct. And now we're at this final stage. What is the file name of the malware sample? And so with this, little bit of critical thinking here, realizing that the last question only asked for the string, and we need the string and the byte sequence. So if I come in here, now I actually have to make a modification to the Yara rule. That's the final step that we're trying to teach the students. And so if we go in here, we can do A and B, checking for the string and the byte sequence. And if we run Yara again, we get a single response that is sample 32. And we've completed this challenge. So that's kind of the experience that students will get. We have a variety of different challenges. We really build NCL to be interesting to people at all different skill levels. And so we aim to have about a fifth of the one half of the content at kind of the beginner level, where if they go through the practice, they should be able to solve these challenges without requiring an extensive class. And in addition to the 50% of the easy level content, there's 30% of the medium, the intermediate content, where if they've taken 1 or 2 classes, they might have learned how to do that within the class and they can apply that there. And then the last 20% of the content that we have is really like a stretch, right? The advanced content to keep students who are a little bit more of an expert interested throughout the competition. And so typically for those challenges, you wouldn't be expected to see this content in any sort of course unless it's something really specialized. The idea here being that we're trying to teach students how to learn things on the fly and how to deal with situations where they're encountering a new technology or a new piece of software or a new vulnerability or what have you. Because in the real world, they're not going to get trained on 100% of everything that they need to know. There's going to be a new breach, a new technology, and they're going to be expected to deal with it on the fly. And so that's what we're really testing there. And so some examples of what that might look like is a few seasons back, we did a packet capture of 4G cell data. It was like some text messages being sent over 4G. And so we're like, here's the packet capture. Can you tell me the phone number of the sender and the recipient of this text message and what do they say? And there's very small likelihood that a student would have learned that in a class, but there's plenty of documentation on how the 4G standard works. They can go online, they can search up the specification, they can use Wireshark, they can find other tools, they can build their own tools to solve that problem. And that's what they're going to be expected to do in the real world. In the real world, they're not going to get a course for every single thing that they need to know. They're going to be expected to pick these things up on the fly. And so that's really what the NCL experience is about. When you go and you start looking at the analytics, you can see that a lot of the players within NCL are beginners. And so if I look at the score distribution, you can actually see that most players are getting a below a 30%. And this is perfectly normal because, like I said, we're building the experience to be interesting for everyone at all skill levels. And so the idea is that students will come in their first semester, they might get like a 20 to a 30%. Their next semester, they might be going for like a 40% or a 50%. They're, you know, and they just keep working their way up. The way that we describe it to the players is that it's like climbing a mountain. You got to start at the bottom and you work your way up. And every time you do it, every time you practice it, you get better and better at doing it. And so really the big thing, the big takeaway that we want to focus on with our players is that it's not about like figuring out what you know today. It's actually about tracking that growth and that journey. And that's the really cool thing about the platform is that the students will go and get their scouting reports. So they'll have a record of where was I as a freshman, where was I as a sophomore, where was I as a junior, and they can look at their own progress and see that they're making their way up. They can show that to an employer. On the website here, I can look at my overall metrics. I can specifically drill down into skill sets. And so maybe I'm interested in my enumeration and exploitation skills. And so I can get specific analytics just for this category. Or maybe I'm interested in my password cracking skills. I have the ability to go and jump through these and see how I'm performing. And if you have students who are not ready to compete, maybe they're afraid that they won't perform well, the cool thing about NCL is that you can use a pseudonym. You can choose what name shows up on the leaderboard. And so you can choose something anonymous so that you can't be recognized. If you look at a lot of these stats, it's not calling out individual people. It's kind of anonymized other than what you want to put on the leaderboard, and that's up to you. And as coaches, as instructors, you'll be able to see these types of reportings for your students. And so you'll be able to go through a dashboard. You can see all of your students listed there, and you can click on each one. And so you'll be able to see, all right, this is how my class is doing, and how can I help these students prepare, whether it's for other competitions, maybe it's for a job. That data is extremely valuable, extremely powerful to make a lot of these decisions. So I'm gonna go through and look at some of these questions. I saw that Nathan here is asking, are previous challenges available to try in system or offline? And can you include any outside of the competition? So to answer your first question, yes. So if you're a faculty member, you can open a support ticket and you can let us know that you want access to the practice gym so that you can help prepare for your class. We give that for free for faculty members to use year round. So you can use that as much as you want. And David Zychek responded to the other one. We have the normal NCL season on this schedule that happens twice a year. But if you want something that will have that you can have like throughout the year on your own schedule, we also have what we call the Lab Kit, which is basically a condensed version of the National Cyber League experience. It's not the same. It's not the same competition, but it's a kit where you get the practice experience as well as a culminating competition, and you can use that with your students, and you can set the schedule for when you want to do that. So whatever works best with your schedule, you can do that. And I see the question here asking about the costs. So let me switch back to the slides. So I mentioned faculty members can participate in the NCL for free. For students, the cost is $35 per student for the season. And so with that $35, they get access to the they'll get access to the individual game, they'll get access to the team game, the practice game, the gymnasium, they'll get access to the whole thing, as well as all of the other community resources that we have. So they'll have access to the community Slack. They'll have access to the webinars that we do. They'll get notified about all the meetups that we do as well. So there's a lot jam-packed into that registration fee, and there's no separate fee for the individual and the team competition. So the way that it works, when you have your students register, they register first as an individual, and then after they register as an individual, they can build teams. So they can invite people onto their team, or they can join someone else's team. Mark is asking, can the fee be paid through the bookstore so that financial aid can be used? Yes, so we have distribution through Barnes and Noble. We also have distribution through Follett. We don't have an ISBN number, but we can, if you connect us to your local bookstore, we can get set up in there. A quick note though is that the registration will be more expensive through the bookstore than if they come direct, because the bookstore is going to add their fees on top of it. So what we recommend to make things affordable as much as possible for the students is if the students are using some sort of financial aid or tuition, they can do that through the bookstore. If they're going to be paying out of pocket, we recommend that they come direct so that they don't have to pay the extra bookstore fee on top of the normal registration fee. And Dan Mance is asking if we've got a few success stories that we can share about the NCL. We've got a ton of them. So we've had, so we have the NCL Players Committee. The NCL Players Committee is a group of NCL alumni who are giving back to the community. So they help they help us run events, they help share their stories, and they help get other players excited. One of the members of the NCL Players Committee is Angela. And Angela actually joined us for a webinar last Tuesday, and she was talking about how she did NCL, and when she applied for a job, she actually used NCL as a way to get a higher starting salary at her job, because she was able to show, hey, I am one of the top peoples within one of the top players within NCL. And they gave her a higher starting salary. So that was really cool to hear, that like I suppose the $35 registration fee was well worth it for her to get that increased starting salary. We also have a lot of players who will talk about how they were able to talk to a recruiter about their NCL experience at a networking event or at a career fair. And if they've been applying with resumes and just not getting any responses, right? You have a lot of people sending in resumes. It's very unlikely that you'll get a call back if you just send in a resume. But what they were doing is they were talking about their experience participating in NCL in an in-person networking event, and they got immediately an interview with the hiring manager right after that, and they got hired right after that. So they didn't have to go through the whole, kerfuffle of applying online and having to sit through this whole process and waiting several weeks to get a response back. They went from meeting the company on day one to getting a job offer within a week. So that was really exciting to see as well. There's also another question, can payment be done in bulk for a group of students paid by our school? Yes, actually we see about 50% of all NCL registrations are coming through these bulk purchases. So if you are a coach and you register for NCL, through the normal free coach registration process, there will be an option there for you to purchase registrations for your students with a credit card. So if you have a credit card, you can go through, buy the registrations. You'll get basically a giant spreadsheet of the codes. You'll also get a PDF document with instructions as well that you can send to your students. So it's one code per student. And if you have like a mail merge, you can email it out to all of your students using a mail merge. Or we've also seen a lot of schools just like take the list of codes and the roster, fuse them together, publish it, and have their students kind of pick the codes from the spreadsheet. If you don't have a credit card that you can use, we also support purchase orders. And so we have a form that you can fill out. If you go to the registration, the NCL registration page, you scroll down a little bit, there's a button for bulk purchases, and you can fill out a form, put in your finance point of contacts information in there, and then they can pay with a check, or they can pay with their credit card if you don't have access to their credit card as well. So there's a lot of schools doing that. I'm going to answer this next question, but to Dan's question about the success stories, I actually would love David Zajac as the NCL commissioner share his experience with NCL and the success that he's had with it before he became commissioner. So David, I'm prepping you before I put you on the spot. So Well, let me answer. Let me answer this next question, then I'll kick it back to you. We're getting a question for how long do students have access to the platform? So students will have access to the platform from when they register. So right now registration is already open all the way to the end of the practice game, or sorry, not the practice game, the gymnasium, which is December 16th. So we have the games in October and November, like the mid to late October, beginning of November. But even after the games and technically during the games, they have access to the gymnasium. So if they want to go through those guides and practice that entire time, they can go and do that. And so we see a lot of players after participating in the game, they actually go back into the gymnasium to continue building those skills even after the games are over. So David, let me pass it on to you. I would love to hear your success story.
Yeah, sure. So I think maybe one reason why I kind of came to the attention of NCL is that I have had my class participating in the NCL for almost 10 years now. And we have had quite some success. So I'm a professor at Chico State here in California, and we've had top teams. So we've had a first place team, a second place team, a third place team, and we continue to be in the top 20. So the students are doing great. Not only are they performing well, but like Franz has mentioned, NCL has been really, I think, kind of pivotal for some of them when they go up for interviews, because it does seem like the hiring managers love to talk about, things outside of class. And this really is something that can be talked about as an outside of class activity. And they like to really hear about how, students, solve some of these challenges. That's, a great interview question too, to be able to, walk through their process of solving challenges. And that really just shows critical thinking. So students love talking about the NCL and their success there. And then the employers love to talk to students about their experience. So yeah, I would say that's been great for students getting hired. Another thing too is that I have been looking at my student reviews. So students do what's called our SET here on campus, which is a student evaluation of teaching, and their comments and their rating of doing the NCL as extra lab work has been phenomenal. They really have loved doing this, and I think it really speaks to like the deep learning aspect when students are given real world challenges and given, time to work on it. They can go beyond the material that I cover in class and the labs that I cover in class and kind of really explore. And as Franz had mentioned, I think he showed you like the point total. There's about 3,000 points that are out there to be had. And there's also easy, medium, and hard challenges. And I would say typically, an average student might score somewhere around, 1,000 or less out of those 3,000 points. So that shows that there's really a lot of room for students to practice. So students that really want to advance, they have a lot of points to be gained and really dive deep into this. And they do truly spend the whole weekend working on it. And I also have to be like Franz has said, is okay, guys, you need to take a break. You've been working on this for 24 hours straight, and they're just they're having a lot of fun doing it. So yeah, it's been great for the students in terms of their experience. It's been great for me for just an added teaching benefit, something that they can dive deep into. And then also it looks great because students are getting jobs in the security field, which is one of the main goals of teaching, is to get them prepared and get them a successful career.
And another thing that I'll add as well is that we don't only support the students, but we also try to support all of the coaches. And so one of the initiatives that we have is called the Coaches Committee. And so this is David, you want me to pass it on to you? I think you might be the best.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, the coaches committee there is really to support the coaches. We've had pretty good attendance. Our last call last month, we had over 50 participants. We have another call coming up on Thursday, and we so far have, I think, over 60 people saying yes, that they want to join the call. And one of the ideas behind the call is to really share success stories. Even though we are a coach and we are competing, our main goal overall is to, teach the students and guide the students through their career, towards a career. So what we want to do is make it easy to on-ramp. So anyone that is new to the NCL, we want to share our experiences and share, our class curriculum, and show that how we have successfully incorporated the NCL into the class. So I think it's a great resource. It seems like lots of other people are thinking it's a great resource as well, because they are joining the call and actively participating. One thing that I did mention in the chat too is that one of the things that we're looking at working on at a coach's call is to build out a Canvas shell. And that Canvas shell would just be kind of a demo of all of the curriculum that I use and other people on the NCL coaches committee, what they use to teach the class. So we really want to use that to share our ideas and our success, to make it easy for others to, on-ramp into the NCL and incorporate it into their classroom.
Thanks, David. And I also want to add, if you've got any questions at all about the NCL, please reach out to us. I just posted our email in the chat there. We're always happy to help. If you want to jump on a call, need some information, we're here to help. And definitely, if you want to join a coach's call, we do have one on Thursday. David, can you remind us what time that would be?
Yeah, so it's 9:30 a.m. Pacific, 12:30 Eastern. And then just to also respond to the question about Clark, yes, that actually is the plan. So I think Stephen Miller was the one who pointed us in that direction, and we will be posting whatever we have created on the Clark website, the clark.center site.
And I saw a question from Jake earlier, asking anything within this project that we're most proud of. I would say this is a feature that we added in the last couple of years, that live Linux environment directly in the browser. I think is probably the thing that we're the most proud of. We have ways to give students access to a real computer directly within the browser, right? They don't have to install a VPN. They don't have to install a client. It's made things a lot more accessible for students. And then the next question here is, do we have any new features on the drawing board? I'd say, so we've got something that's in the works. I can't specifically commit to when this is going to be a feature that rolls out. But something that we are currently planning, something that we're currently building, is the ability to do service checks on these virtual computers directly within the browser. So we want to get to the point where NCL players can like get access to a machine, secure it, and then have like an automated red team come and try to breach it. And then they'll get little points depending on whether they are able to prevent the attack, or after the attack, were they able to get their services back up. So that's something that we kind of have in the works. It could be coming out next year. It could be coming out 2-3 years from now. I'm not quite sure yet. But I think that's a really cool kind of next step for the future of the NCL, especially because it kind of breaks the mold a little bit of the CTF format to have a little bit more interactivity there. So that's something I'm looking forward to. Again, can't comment on when that will come out, but that is something that we are actively working on. And then there's a question here. Are we planning to get vendors into the platform to see top students to offer them jobs on the platform? So we are working with cybersecurity employers to help students get hired. We actually have a job directory where we are highlighting cybersecurity jobs that NCL students would be great fits for. That's specifically focusing on entry-level jobs. We also have partnerships with different companies. So one of our big partners is CrowdStrike. So last Thursday, actually, we ran an internship webinar with CrowdStrike, and they are very interested to hire NCL players. We also have a mentorship program with CrowdStrike for students at HBCUs and MSIs. And so NCL students are able to network with professionals within CrowdStrike. They get to meet a bunch of different mentors. We actually have 4 sessions for each mentee, and each session they get to meet a new mentor so that they can find the right match for them and see what different careers there are within the cybersecurity field. And as a bonus for that program, they actually get a small stipend from CrowdStrike. So we are working with companies to help students get jobs directly from participating within NCL. And we're always looking for other opportunities, getting more companies in there. And a lot of what we're doing as well with community building, we're going to start seeing we're going to start seeing more kind of interactions there, especially like at meetups where we'll have professionals within the industry there to help with the networking so students can get jobs more easily.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. We have any more lingering questions?
Franz, I think a question some faculty have is, how much do I have to know about what goes on in NCL to be able to help my students and put it in my class? So what is the knowledge level needed for a faculty?
That's a great question. So it's actually not that high. What we say is that if you are kind of at the Security Plus level, that should be a pretty good starting point. Within NCL, we try to provide a lot of the support so that the coach doesn't have to be the one to answer every single question. So if you are pretty solid with Security Plus, you should be comfortable coaching your students within NCL. There's also the practice gymnasium, which is available. If you are not sure yet, if you're comfortable with the NCL content, let us know. We can set you up with the practice, and that can help you gauge whether or not you think you're at the level for NCL. And another thing that we do is we do post-game debriefs at the end of the individual and the team game. So there are some kind of more advanced stuff where you might not know how to solve it, because I mentioned we do a lot of those like niche technologies where you have to go do a lot of research to figure it out. You don't have to answer all those questions from your students. Within Slack, at the end of the game, we will discuss how to solve all the different challenges within the game. So players will be able to get their answers, their questions answered, and see how do I solve everything. And so they won't have to go to you. But something that we do see at the end of a lot of the games is the students looking at the post-game debrief, looking at their own notes, and then having presentations as a group to debrief the class or the club afterwards. And the coach there, it would definitely be helpful if you can help facilitate that so your students learn from each other. But the amount that you actually need to know technically to help a lot of your students is at that CompTIA Security Plus level.
Yeah, and I would agree, Franz. I consider myself more of like a facilitator on that, and figuring out how to put the groups together and good ways for them to share information, because the students really love talking to each other and talking about how they solved a challenge, and they love sharing that with fellow students. So I will help lead them and get them there to at least be prepared, kind of a set of tools to use and some background information, and help guide them through the gym. But some of those more complicated problems, they just love to, share amongst themselves. And also the team game, like you said, the team game is when you have, the group of students working together on it. So they really are learning from each other as they go and solve the challenges.
And I will say the schools that have been the most successful are the ones where the students are actually end up teaching each other. Like David mentioned, there's actually very little that the faculty have to be involved with. It's really just about setting them up for success, helping them maybe schedule meetings, helping them figure out what tech talks, what presentations they want to do to help prepare, set that schedule. I mean, that's 90% of what it means to be a coach, is just kind of getting your students organized and being there to support them, because they typically just end up asking each other questions and solving a lot of their questions that way.
Absolutely. And I'm learning from them. A lot of those challenges, I'm like, how did you do that? And they love to explain it.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. I really appreciate everyone from the CAE community for giving us the opportunity to speak today. And it's exciting right now with the space and cyber competitions. There's so many opportunities for students to learn right now. And we hope to see you all and your students in NCL, whether it's this season or in a future season. When we're always here to help. So even if you if you're not ready for NCL this season, or you're not sure, let us know. We're happy to point you to any resources that we're aware of that can help, because we really just want to help prepare the students, help them get jobs. And for us, it's really about the community here. So we're all here to support each other. And I really appreciate David, as you joining the call and sharing your experience as a coach and as the NCL commissioner.
Well, thanks.
And thanks
Been
Yair
fun
for
doing it.
yeah, and thanks Yair and Dan for inviting us today.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm going to share in the chat our next event will be on October 18, and you will get information about that on the website. The recording of this event will be posted also on the CAE community YouTube channel. And shortly, you're going to get an email with evaluation of the session. So please, it's not a phishing. It's going to be a survey request from all of you. So thank you so much for the presenters, Franz and David. David, we're very proud of you as our own graduate. And stay safe, everyone. Dan, you want to say any final word? Sorry about that. Okay. Take care, everyone.